what's up? Today, I'm gonna show you not one, but 3 delicious ways to make a hot bowl of cheesy starch. I'll start out with an extremely simple but delicious good mac and cheese that anyone can make. Then I'll show you how to bring in some more texture and more flavor for a better mac and cheese. Then finally, I'm gonna use some classic cooking techniques to bring you the best possible mac and cheese you can make at home. First up is a gooey, easy to make, good version of mac and cheese. To make it, I'll start with about 3 to 4 quarts of boiling water. Then I'll drop in a generous pinch of salt, or 10 grams worth. Then in goes 225 grams, or just about a half pound of elbow macaroni. I'm using small elbows just like Kraft does because texturally there's something really great about squishing 25 little cheesy noodles in your mouth all at once. And after about 10 minutes of boiling, you can see these noodles are nice and tender. In my opinion, there's no room for toothsome al dente pasta in stovetop mac and cheese, so I cook mine for about 60 seconds longer than package instructions. Next, I'll move the noodles over to the sink so I can drain off the excessive pasta water, but not all of it. I'm gonna save about 5 to 10% so that my cheese sauce doesn't get too thick. Next, I'll move back over to the stove and then drop down my pot, then turn the heat down to low. Next, in goes 250 grams of milk, then I'll bring all of that up to a boil, then I'll add in my cheeses. First in is 150 grams of American cheese, which is about 6 American singles. I'm opting for American singles here because I assume most people have them in their fridge right now. Also, American singles are full of something called sodium citrate, which is the ultimate cheat code for making unbreakable cheese sauces. It's a thing in nacho cheese and Velveeta that keeps them so creamy, and it's the thing that gives American cheese its amazing meltability on cheeseburgers. Next, I'll add in 150 grams of any kind of shredded cheese. I personally prefer mild cheddar because it has decent meltability and it's got enough flavor, but whatever's left over from taco night or any other shredded cheese blends that you've got will totally work. From here, I'll jump in with a spoon and just stir the cheese into the milk until everything's melty. One thing I want to mention about mac and cheese recipes is that pasta absorbs a lot of the moisture as time goes on, and cheese sauces firm up as they sit, making them thicker. At this point, the mac looks great, but it's a little bit thick. So to finish, I'm going to add in just a splash more milk, or about 50 to 75 grams, then stir that in until everything is gooey and saucy. I'll also add in a small pinch of salt here, about 3 grams, then stir that in. The cheese does have salt in it, but it's not enough to carry the whole dish. Now let's taste this thing. That tastes super good. I mean, it does taste just like Kraft mac and cheese, so if you're a fan of that, this is gonna hit very similarly. There is a little bit more cheese flavor and the texture of the sauce is better. It's a little bit creamier, but it's still that ooey, gooey, melty American cheese thing that doesn't quite taste like cheese. Next up is a better mac and cheese. In this version, we bring in a few tricks to improve the texture of the cheese sauce, making it more luxurious, and we use more flavorful cheeses. To make it into a 4-quart saucepan, I'll add 750 grams of water, then 225 grams of evaporated milk, and a medium pinch of salt, or about 3 to 4 grams. I'm using evaporated milk over reg because the flavorful aged cheeses that I want to use are low moisture, high protein, and this makes them very difficult to melt. You'll know this intuitively if you've ever tried to melt aged cheddar into straight up milk. It gets broken and super grainy. Evaporated milk is the move here because it has emulsifiers in it like carrageenan, and that make it perfect for holding the water, fat, and protein in aged cheeses together when heated. This is a classic J. Kenji Lopez alt move that I've been using for many years now, and I'll link to his article on cheese sauces in the description. Next, I'll add in 225 grams of large elbow mac. Then I'll stir that in and bring it up to a boil and cook for about 10 minutes. I'm using large elbows for this dish because I think they look cool and they make this mac and cheese feel more grown up. Plus, the larger noodles are chewier and have a much more dynamic eating experience than the small ones. Now, just pop a lid on this thing and cook it until the pasta is tender. Now, let's sort out the cheese. For that, I'm gonna grab a block of extra sharp cheddar and grate it on the largest holes of my box grater. If you can find a pre-shredded extra sharp cheddar that you think tastes good, then by all means use that and save yourself this grating step. For me, the most flavorful sharp cheddars are available only as blocks and not shredded, so I opt to grate it myself. Once I've got 125 grams of cheddar grated up, I'll add in 10 grams of cornstarch and then just toss to combine. The cornstarch is another Kenji move that makes it much easier to melt aged cheeses into milk. Now, the second cheese that I need to grate for the sauce is aged Parmesan. I've got a brick of nice 24-month imported Parmesan here, and I'm gonna grate that on the feather side of my box grater. Of course, if you don't have a fancy block of Parmesan on hand, the pre-ground domestic stuff will totally work. The sharp cheddar is gonna do the majority of the heavy lifting flavor-wise. Now, once the noodles have cleared the al dente stage and are nice and squishy, it's time to make the sauce. First, I'll drop in 50 grams of butter, then stir that in until it's melted into the starchy milk. And once I've got a rich, buttery sauce coating the noodles, I'll add in 5 slices of American cheese. That's only 2 slices though. Where are the other 3 slices of American?
Dude, are we seriously out of American cheese?
What you just witnessed was a reenactment, but it depicts a situation that I find myself in all the time, which is I'm filming, I realize I'm out of something, and I can't really stop filming to go to the store, so I need to enlist DoorDash, the sponsor of this video, to go get it for me. DoorDash is an on-demand delivery platform that I use pretty much weekly to cater team lunch here at B-Man HQ, but the thing that I use it for more often than that is ordering groceries. Using DoorDash is like having an extra set of hands in the kitchen for when I run out of cheese or any other groceries that I might need, and I don't have the time to go pick them up myself during filming. The DoorDash app lets you schedule, substitute, and track your grocery order, and you can even communicate directly with the shopper, so if you need to change anything on the fly or answer a question, you can get that done. Download the DoorDash app right now to get groceries delivered, and if you use code Brian50, you'll get 50% off up to $10 on your first order of $15 or more. That'll work at convenience, grocery, and select retail stores. Thank you 21st Century for this amazing technology, and thank you DoorDash for sponsoring this video. Once I've finally got 5 slices of American in the mix here, I'll add in all of my starched cheddar, then 30 grams of grated Parmesan cheese. From here, I'll just stir the cheese into the buttery milk until everything is melted and silky. This combination of cheeses really hits that high-low sweet spot. You get the complexity of flavor from the aged cheeses, then you get the nasty gooiness from the American. One last touch is to add just a little bit more salt, maybe about 2 to 3 grams worth. Then it's time to pile this mac into a deep bowl, then top with some extra sharp shredded cheddar cheese. This better version of mac and cheese is a big step up from when we started this video, and it's probably the one that you're gonna end up making. It's super easy and very high payoff in terms of texture and flavor, and I really think you're gonna love it. Right away, I noticed that this sauce is way more flavorful. Plus, it coats the noodles better. It's silkier, it's creamier, and just kind of velvety. I also like that the noodles are big too. It doesn't make you feel like you're eating boxed Kraft macaroni and cheese. Okay, now it's time for the finale. Up next is the best tasting mac and cheese that I've ever experienced as a human man on earth. This time we're gonna fold in some classical cooking technique along with a suite of super flavorful cheeses. To get started, I'll grab 3 delicious cheeses: Italian Taleggio, Swiss Gruyere, and Italian Parmigiano. Taleggio, if you haven't heard of it, is a very flavorful Italian cheese that has some serious stink to the outside.
Oh God.
Don't let that scare you away though, because the inside paste is actually very mild and buttery, almost like brie. To prep it up for the mac, I'll cut off all of the washed rind. Next, I'll just chop the interior paste of the Taleggio into tiny little pieces. If you don't want to use this cheese, or if you can't find it, I would say sub in fromage dauphinois or a simple brie. Once I've got about 75 grams of Taleggio chopped up, I'm gonna grab my nutty Gruyere and salty umami Parmigiano and grate those down on my box grater. In total, I need 75 grams of Gruyere and 50 grams of Parm. The last little bit of prep here is to fry some panko breadcrumbs to bring some rich crunchiness to the top of this mac and cheese. To make them into a nonstick pan over medium-high, I'll squiggle about 20 to 30 grams of olive oil, then I'll shake in a half cup of chunky panko breadcrumbs and then fry until they're golden brown for about 2 to 3 minutes. A quick tip here is that you gotta keep the breadcrumbs moving the whole time they're frying, because they can go from blonde to burnt in about 15 seconds if you're not paying attention. And once these crumbs are deeply golden brown, I'll scoot them over to a paper towel lined plate to drain and cool while I pull my grated cheeses together into a first-class Mornay. Into a saucepan, I'll add 30 grams of butter and then melt it. Then to get a roux going on, I'll add in 20 grams of AP flour, then whisk until there aren't any more lumps. From here, I'll sizzle the flour for about 30 seconds over medium heat to cook off its raw edge. Next, with my whisk moving the roux, I'm gonna stream in 400 grams of milk. I'll start with a little bit of milk, then once that's mixed in, I'll add in a little more. Then eventually all the milk goes in, and I'll keep on whisking until things are homogeneous. Quickly, you can see the starch in that flour thickens the milk into a bechamel. Now to turn that beche into a Mornay, I'm gonna lower the heat to very low, then add in my Gruyere, Taleggio, Parmesan, and then 4 to 5 grams of salt. Next, I'll jump back in with my whisk and stir until the cheeses are melted into the thickened milk. Oh, and by the way, if you can't find Gruyere, I would say sub in a 6-month white cheddar. The roux should have no problem holding a cheese with that age together with everything else. And once the cheese are melted into the milk, you can see that we've got a nice thick fondue situation. To make this thing creamier and, well, saucier, I'm gonna add in 75 grams of mascarpone cheese, then whisk that in. The mascarpone brings a dream creamy, satiny finish to this cheese sauce, along with some sweet, fresh milk flavor. If you can't find mascarpone, I would say sub in 30 grams of sour cream and 45 grams of milk. To finish this thing, I'll grab my microplane and grate in a little whisper of nutmeg. A little goes a long way here, so be conservative. Then finally, a strong pinch of black pepper, or about 1 to 2 grams worth. Then I'll pop a lid on the saucepan to keep a skin from forming. Then I'll scoot it off to the side and then drop a pot for pasta on my burner. I'll keep the cheese sauce rolling over the lowest possible heat so it doesn't burn while I cook the pasta. And once my salted water is up to a full boil, I'll add in 225 grams of large shells and stir into the water to make sure they don't stick, then cook for 10 minutes. I chose large shells for this best version of the mac and cheese because, well, they're pretty looking and the deep ridges on the outside hold this particular cheese sauce very well. And after 10 minutes of cook time, these noodles are soft. So I'll drain the water off the shells, then drop those things into my warm cheese bath. From here, I'll toss them in the mornay to get them evenly coated. And I'll mention that as I stir, some additional starch is going to come off the pasta, and that's actually going to help thicken things up and unify the noodles with the sauce. Now to serve, I'll drop into a deep bowl, then top with a copious amount of fried panko breadcrumbs. Then I'll add on some grated Parmesan and some grated Gruyere, then a strong pinch of black pepper and a long drizzle of nice tasting olive oil. Ooh, or truffle oil would also be sickeningly good. And that is the best mac and cheese I know how to make. This cheese sauce covers the entirety of cheese experience in one bite. You get salty, funky, umami, nutty, and creamy, and it's all held together in this very luscious, velvety sauce. It's literally the best mac and cheese I've ever had in my life. By a lot. If you guys want another video packed full of well-tested recipes, then check out this video for baked mac and cheese 2 ways. Now, let's eat this thing.